So good afternoon, everyone. I am Andrea Lorenzini, working at MEMEX, and welcome to this thematic webinar titled Digital Solution and App Jungle in Shared Mobility Services Issues and Opportunities. MEMEX is the coordinator of the SMARTA project, within which this set of webinar is organizing. So this webinar is trying to look and discuss the role of digital solution in rural shared mobility services. We have excellent presentations followed by panel discussion with expert practitioners from different countries. So I really hope that you will enjoy the event. So as I was saying before, this is the first of a set of 3 webinars that we are planning to develop in October and November. The second one will be held on the 28th of October, and the third one will be held on the 5th of November. So everyone is clearly welcome to also enjoy this one. So a few words of introduction, just to remind to ourselves how this webinar will be organized. So the webinar is divided in 2 main sessions. The first one, where we will have 3 presentations, the first from Saverio, the second one from Eva Martinez and Xilef, and the third one from Mauro Pallari. And afterward, we will have a panel discussion where we will have John, Carl, and Kathleen involved. Brendan Phil will moderate this session. The second session will be held afterwards, and we have again 3 presentations. One from Cristina Lazarus from Tricala, one from Marianne from Navogo, and the third one from Claudio, a more technical one, followed again by a sort of panel discussion. And at the end, we are looking for a quick question and answer session where all the speakers and panelists are invited to give their contribution and feedback. So this is how this webinar is organized. Throughout the duration of this webinar, I remind to keep the microphone and the camera off, although you are a presenter or a speaker or involved in the panel discussion. So just to make an example, in this first session, we will have Brendan, Saverio, Eva, Xilef, Mauro, John, Carl, and Kathleen with their webcam open when the panel discussion will be started. So no more words from my side. I hope you enjoy, and now I leave the floor to Saverio that will introduce this topic with his presentation. So Saverio, the floor is yours. You can also open your microphone and camera. Yeah.
Thank you, Andrea. And do you see the screen, the slide?
Yes, yes. If you want, you can also activate your camera so that we see you.
Okay.
Okay, thanks.
Thanks. Nice to talk again with all the participants. When the agenda of the webinar was drafted, we thought that it could be good to have a sort of guidance note as a first presentation. And this is the objective of my speech this afternoon. And the reason why we choose this option is when we are talking about an app, we are thinking a set of functionalities, like, for example, the provision of user information or the data collection through questionnaire, or the customization of functionalities based on the customer need, for example, the setting of preference of the alert notification and so on. But we often forgot that we are not just talking about a simple app, but rather a platform which is behind the app itself. Actually, the app is a channel for the provision of services and the visualization of data, but the data behind these functionalities is provided by other systems For example, here you can see the picture of the architecture of a Celso system, that is the light fleet monitoring system developed by Memex, feeding the info user app for the customer. According to the development of mobile technology in the recent years, we have an increasing interest from the public authority, public transport operator, relating to the apps as a light technology to provide functionality to the end users. We think that the categorization of the app market is useful to identify the needs and to screen this market. Anyway, we must be aware that any categorization can have limits, because you can find example of app that fits well in the category, other less. In general, you must think to the category in a flexible way, meaning that this category are able to catch the key feature and approaches of the app, but should not see as strict as possible. We propose this kind of categorization that is based on a 3 level. The first group is the app exposing information services like static information, for example, timetable, the routing on the line, public transport journey planner, integrated eventually by working information, or other static information could be the info related to the selling network, how the selling point are located, which service is provided, and news. And also this kind of app provide real-time information like events on the network and line diversion. To be quite easy in the presentation, we can figure out that this class, this group, is related to one operator serving one or more different area with related services. The second group, we included the app that expose also in services like ticket purchase, booking, and the last third group is app integrating data from other services and providing functionalities like multimodal journey planner and integrated ticket selling. In this last group, we can also include app providing innovative functionality like cross-sourcing or gamification, or other functionalities, for example, the aggregation of demand, the management of rider sharing trips, as a combination of the public transport services offered. In general, through this class, this group, we are moving from company branded app focusing on public transport and the related services to a wide concept of city, shire, region branded app, where the focus is more on mobility, on a broader sense, travel experience, or tourism. And for example, with the functionalities of data collection, we are moving from app which provides services to the customer to app that collect data that could be useful for the improvement of service planning and operation. The user need analysis is relevant for the app as for the other ITS services. The objective for its implementation is the first step to be set out, together with the identification of the customer group, the gaps, and the main needs we want to answer for this customer group. And this is a key point in order to define the functionalities of the app. On the other hand, we must take into account the institutional context, because, for example, there could be some concurrent initiative that could be joined together. And in this case, we need to have a good cooperation level among the involved stakeholders. A background condition from the technical point of view is the data which are available to feed the functionalities. And this is a good exercise that we propose for this. You can list the functionalities that you plan for the app and link them to the data required to manage these functionalities and the ITS system or the data source that provide this information. At the end, you can check this data source, and you must answer to this question, which is the data owner. The data are already published, for example, in open format or can accessed anyway, for example, by web services. Which is the data format? It's a proprietary data, or it's an open data, standardized for format like Siri for public transport. And this information are useful to define the data exchange protocol. Then you should check the quality of data. The data are good to cover the area, how often are they updated, and if there are more or less reliable. Two other points that you need to take into account at this stage is the availability of open data, the first one, and the second one is the availability of a centralized data source, like, for example, integrated data at regional or shire level. And for this, the last one, you should take into account that, of course, the use of centralized data easy the implementation work for integration, because you have to interface just one source of data and not more. But you can have also some cons. For example, if the local system information is updated every 1 minute, and the information from the local level is updated every 5 minutes to the centralized data, if you integrate, if you access the centralized data, you can have data refreshed every 5 minutes and not every minute like at the original database. And finally, you should also not underestimate the complexity of the process, because the development of app is a living process. The app grow during this evolution, starting from some functionalities and extending to other one, and also the needs are changing, because for example, now the requirement in terms of interaction and graphics are very, very different from some years ago, when the first apps coming into the market. So you have to take in account an ongoing market analysis to have the need to specify new functionalities, to integrate new data, and to contract new functionalities with the IT provider, and to make tests for these functionalities. And the last example that I would like to show you is about the quality of data and the reliability of the functionalities. That is a key point for the success of the app. And for this, you have to define performance indicators that you have to measure during the acceptance phase and during the operation. But it's also relevant to have a good maintenance of data. And you, last but not least, you have to consider that the ITS providing data should be operated in a proper and efficient way. That's all. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Saverio, for this nice introduction and for bringing us into the topic of this discussion. So thank you very much. You can stay also for the panel afterwards. As I said before, this webinar is also developed for sharing experience among different sites, and also for trying to build a sort of network among sites. So we really hope that these presentations will be followed by bilateral discussion among you, so that that you can have further exchange about that. So we now begin with 2 sites who have implemented mobile application from 2 different regions. One is from Valirana in Spain, and the other one is from Toscana Sud in Italy. So I would like now to leave the floor to Eva and to Xilef to present their experience in Valirana, and after there will be Mauro. So Eva, Xilef, the floor is yours.
Hello. Hello, thank you, Andrea. I feel very happy to participate in this webinar, and I send you all my strength and optimism in this second wave of the coronavirus. I have been the mayor of Valirana since 2011. The first years were very complicated by the economic crisis, and the finances of the city council were practically bankrupt. This made us rethink the urban transport service and concentrate resources on the lines that have the most users. But this caused some lines to be reduced, and this made the number of passengers decrease each year. In 2017, we again analyzed the mobility needs of citizens, and thanks to the Soler-Sauret transport operator and the company Shuttle, we started the Valirana Connected on-demand transport project. The new service with a new wheel-grown image began testing in August 2018. The increase in users has been spectacular, and we combine on-demand service, regular lines, and intercity transport. The result, more public transport passengers and happy citizens. But what is the cost of this service? It is cheap or expensive. In the study carried out in 2017, the cost was estimated in 200,000 euros. The actual cost was 353,000 euros in the cost in 2019. In my opinion, the cost is high, although the service has increased and is highly rated by users. Other 2019 data are as follows. The number of trips was 76,000 trips in 2019. The annual useful kilometers was 163,000 kilometers. Ticketing income was 52,000 euros. And to grant was 29,000 euros. So the valuable deficit, the deficit of this bus, was 271,000 euros. When Andrea, as we have learned, my answer is the importance of communication to passengers and the promotion of the project, pegging testing to avoid creating false expectations for passengers regarding waiting times. This is more important. The waiting times for the bus and the time inside the bus are critical. The more bus stops, the better. The project started with 80 bus stops, and now we have 89 bus stops. The main barrier to the project is cost. We have not obtained any important grant for the project. The stakeholders, operator, City Council, and Generalitat of Catalonia agreed to carry out the project, although it was and is the City Council that provided almost of the financing. The City Council was the key piece when it comes to setting the cost and the service. As I said, promoting the service is very important. The new on-demand service was promoted in several ways. An information leaflet with the new hours and service when sent by post to all houses of the municipality. New signals was placed at the stops. It was broadcast in the local newspaper. The entities of the third age and centers for the third age were informed. For several months, there was an informant on the bus itself who helped users. In the town hall, there were tablets to book the trip. Promotional material, backpack, fridge magnet, card holder, was produced and given away at the different events that took place in the first month. And the last, the promotion was carried out in secondary schools, and promotional elements were distributed at the end of the classes. Another important element of the success of Vallirana is that it can link with interurban transport, and that in recent years, the number of express buses that connect with Barcelona in 30 minutes has increased. In conclusion, we did not expect the success of on-demand transport and the fast growth of users. We had planned to increase the service with a new small bus destined only for demand, but the evolution of the economic crisis, the public transport deficit, and the decrease in city revenues make it impractical to be able to increase the service in the short term. I would like to end my speaking with optimism and hope. From the government team, we want to continue with the project and we will maintain it. I leave you now with a video that explains very well how the shuttle application works and the joy of rural transport users. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Eva. So let's see the video from the organizers. It should be played in a while. Yeah, okay, I think the video is loading now. Great. Thank you very much, Eva, for this video, for your nice word. I think now the floor is to Xilev. 5 minutes also to give us some more information about the shuttle application. So the floor is yours.
All right. So my name is Xilev Ratran, and I'm the business developer at Shuttle. And I'm joining this webinar from the beautiful city of Barcelona. And I'll present you the suburban Vallirana Barcelona case study with the Vallibus Connected app powered by Shuttle and with the participation of Vallirana Barcelona City Council. So Shuttle is a mobility platform implemented in Vallirana as a solution. So optimizing service with on-demand sustainable transport, Shuttle makes public transit on demand. So we are a B2B software as a service company, empowering transport operators, city councils, municipalities to be able to supply on-demand bus service by providing dynamic routes and flexible schedules. So in Vallirana, we had a problem, okay, and it's a technical dilemma of mobility, and that's how to serve a dispersed or scattered area with a very efficient public transport. So if we go deeper into the problem, we encounter inefficient transport in low-density areas, the suburban and rural areas with restricted access to public transport, where people have limited mobility options, areas where people tend to get isolated, and of course, 100% car dependent. So Vallirana implemented the Shuttle platform as a solution, and this platform consists of the Shuttle passenger app to be able allowing the users to request a ride or a trip in real time, the Shuttle driver app that allows drivers to navigate through all the pickup and drop-off locations. And we do this thanks to a pull-in and dynamic routing algorithm, always assessing and finding the most optimal route and optimizing waiting times and journeys for all passengers. And a real-time dashboard, okay, that allows the controller and administrator to visualize all operations and services in real time, see virtual stops, fleet availability, allocation of drivers, demand fluctuation, and many other functionalities. So with the Vallibus Connected, the passenger can either request a ride in real time, pick up as soon as possible, or schedule a ride or what we call the pre-booking. And this with a 15 days time window or repetitive rides. But also there is the option of a call center, especially for the senior population who are not used to smartphones. So how do you request a ride with Shuttle or the Vallibus Connected? The passenger requests a ride and inserts the pickup and drop-off location. Then the passenger confirms whether it's in real time or a book for the future. Then Shuttle assigns an optimal seat, and the passenger walks off to the virtual stops and meets the driver. The passenger will share the ride with others, following a dynamic, flexible, and fast route till its destination. So before Shuttle, Vallirana had 4 different traditional lines, running with only one bus. So that was the situation at the time. Waiting times of 1 hour and 15 minutes, so there were very long waiting times. The frequency of the service sometimes was only once a day, so the service was very, very sporadic. Areas were left without coverage, and they had 50 stops, and they were transporting 25 passengers per day. So after Shuttle, the demand responsive transit on-demand transport was completely transformed, and the waiting times were of 18 minutes, the traveling times 13 minutes, the stops were incremented in an 80%. Right now they have 87, and now the Vallibus Connected is transporting more than 60 passengers per day. Okay. The Shuttle Vallirana transformation into a fully demand responsive transport, Shuttle created a lot of virtual stops with no fixed routes, no fixed schedules, and the route is planned in real time as per the user's request of the app or the call center, and especially for the senior population, like I mentioned, where sometimes they need to request the ride by phone. And people is now enjoying shorter waiting times and traveling times. So the daily demand, we saw how the ridership increased significantly. The service started, like Eva mentioned, in 2000, in summer 2018. That's when we have a very low demand because it's summertime. So what happened is that Valirana made a very good pre-launching marketing campaign, which was essential to reach out to people and educate the population and the passengers how to use the app and how to make the most of it. So they had a guide, a person explaining the users the service. Additionally, they have leaflets and communication was sent out to the entire population, and it was reinforced with very good communication from the city council. So the call center or the hotline for the passengers to request and pickups and drop-off locations. And after 3 months of the implementation of the service, the demand increased significantly. So it has been an upward trend, user and growth satisfaction. So like you can see, we have a very good app reviews or average rating, 4.6 out of 6, because the service is quick, is efficient, with fast travel times. It's very useful, and it has changed the life and improved the lives of the citizens in the area. So what we have learned from the Vallibus Connected and Shuttle app is a new way to mobilize people in town. So with the help of the platform, Valirana has made a better use of the resources. All areas of Valirana are now covered with on-demand service. There's no need for the use of the private car. Waiting times for the service is very fast. Traveling time is now very short and no long routes. So traveling times, the traveling times has of course improved. Senior and young people can now easily move around town. And there is great connection to the city center and the main parts of the valley. So where all activity happens, and this is shopping areas, schools, hospitals, sports activities. Valirana has now a more sustainable, efficient, and fast public transport. And we are now providing a new flexible mobility that's able to transport everybody in a matter of minutes. And that's it. Thank you very much for your attention.
Thank you very much, Silef. I think it was a very good balance, seeing two perspectives, the technology provider and also the administration and the city council perspective. So thank you very much. We go immediately to the next presentation from Mauro. So Mauro will present the experience from the TIEMME mobile application in Toscana. And so, yeah, Mauro, the floor is yours. We cannot hear you. You can probably open your microphone.
So,
great, thanks.
So it's okay? Okay.
Yeah.
Good afternoon of all participants to SMARTA meeting. And I am Mauro Pallari. I am the responsible of ICT technologies of TIEMME Mobile. So, one moment. You see, Andrea, you see my screen?
Yeah, we see your screen, but not in full screen mode. So if you can start the presentation mode so that we can see a little bigger.
So, one moment.
Yeah, now we see.
You see my screen?
Yeah, not in full screen mode. So if you can press, yeah, schermo intero con F5, vediamo meglio.
Ok, F5. Okay, so
okay, thanks.
Now?
Yeah, okay.
Okay, okay. Allora, TIEMME Mobile, TIEMME is a public transport operator in the southern Tuscany. It operates in geographic area in provinces of Siena, Arezzo, and Grosseto Piombino. TIEMME is the 8th largest Italian public transport operator. And down you see the main numbers of our farm. You see the total production, the kilometers total of our vehicles, kilometers of our school services, passenger of the years, and the number of our staff. On the right, you see the main services that we provide. Urban service in the 4 main towns in our geographic area: Piombino, Siena, Arezzo, Grosseto, and minor urban in other towns, and we provide service extra-urban rural area in a region in a geographic area with lower density of citizens. And we can see other services, school services in several areas, included the SMARTA pilot site and the direct fast line from the main towns of our geographic, and the links to the main city of the region Tuscany, that is Florence. So this is in the slide l'approach platform of INFOMOBILITY of TIEMME. You see in down of the slide l'AVM system that provide from all bus of the TIEMME all information that position of the bus in real time, and arrive in our data center, and from data center either the scheduled information of timetable of our lines. From data center, we can do we can give our information of the public transport in various forms, on the site, on the panel, big small panel in various cities in our area, our geographic area, and in the mobile, by mobile in iOS and Android devices, and by our app TIEMME Mobile. In this slide, we can see the main functionalities in TIEMME Mobile. Pre-planner that you see in the next slide. the information at bus stops, real-time planned transit times. We in our geographic area we have around 12,000 bus stops. Other functionalities is the ticket purchase of all our lines. It's possible to purchase the tickets urban tickets also via SMS. We have also evaluation questionnaires satisfaction level. In light blue, we see the functionality trip diary that we have introduced in the functionality real-time information bus stops, and we will see the evaluation questionnaires a level to evaluate app PT public transport lines. On the right of this slide, you can see the splash screen of our app, and we can see the 4 main functionalities in tapping, the information for a trip planner, where do you want to go, the news up, and down tapping the 2 icons, bus stop and purchase ticket. You can see also.
Sorry to interrupt. You got another 5 minutes maximum.
Okay. Also. Okay. This is the panel with the trip function, the plan U-trip. On the left, the input parameters provided from the user, and on the right, the solution and details of solution. So this is app architecture of the app. You can see on the left the source for the information in database, in central database, scheduled and real-time information of the position of the bus, journey planning service. ICO is our platform of ticket and purchase a ticket, and services provided from web portal, for example, the news of public transport. Recently, we have introduced the new functionalities in our app, Misure's evaluation of the app and the transit lines, and the trip diaries diaries and planned measures assessment. You see, drivers for the design of new functionalities, and our guide is our search solution for trap diaries collection should be not separately accessible and completely manual, but included the current functionalities that exists, particularly we have introduced trap diaries in the most used functionalities, the real-time information on bus transit. A trip diary is fundamental to estimate origin destination matrix for public transport, and introducing these functionalities it's mainly the simplified interaction of the user, and to collect the information its main no required registration to use the TIEMME mobile app. So we see how the user provide information of his travel diary. In the user select his or her trip in the row or yellow or blank provide for information bus stop, and where and after you define the bus stop where you will arrive, and at the right you can see the trip, the chosen trip, and the user sends your diary. So TIEMME can see can do data mining, and for example, we can see the trip diary in from origin Siena Piazza Indipendenza to destination Siena Grotte Fontebranda. We collected 43 trip diaries. This is the slide. In this slide, we can see the evaluation of our app. The user choose how many stars to give our app. In this slide, we can see 9 answers. And finally, final consideration of TIEMME app. Collect information is relatively simple. It's a low-cost solution, and tool complementary for discovering needs for to do intervention in target campaign and plan to planning new service bus. And it is it is support to realize some data collection to main city of our area geographic. Thank you for the attention, and okay, it's all good work.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much, Mauro. You can keep your camera open because now we start the panel discussion. So I will now leave the floor to Brendan that will moderate this session. And I hope you can see the screen, my screen now. So I will invite Saverio, Eva, Xilef, Mauro, John, Carl, and Catherine to open your camera to start discussion. So Brendan, the floor is yours.
Thank you very much, Andrea, and thank you very much to Eva, Xilef, and Mauro for some very, very good presentations. And I think we've taken a very nice walkthrough, beginning with what the administration wished for, the approach from Shuttle, and then we were able to see some very good examples from TIEMME and the kind of screens and the kind of services that are available. If I just remind that this session is being recorded, so people will be able to view it again later, and the presentations will also be available afterwards. So for example, in the presentation made by Mauro, there was a lot of detail, so you'll be able to look at it at your leisure because there's some really good information within that. We're running a little bit behind time, but that's no problem. We had built in reserve. So we'll make these two panel discussions about 15 minutes each instead of 20. And we have some questions from the audience, and we'll pick those up in the Q&A section. So what I'd like to do now is invite our three panelists, maybe in the order Katalin, John, and then Karl-Heinz. And you might just open up with a few minutes of perspective from your own side, or alternatively, you might ask a couple of questions that the speakers and the panelists could respond to. And just before we begin, for the benefit of our audience and other speakers, if I understand correctly, Catalan in Brasov, in SMARTA 2 project, you have gone a long way down the road already in developing the app, but it has not been launched yet due to various the restrictions with COVID and so forth. But you have gone a long way to the development. John, in Kilkenny, that you have an ITS system in place already, you're developing real-time passenger information, but you're asking whether mobile app is something you should do and looking down that road. I think Karl-Heinz in Burgerbus, you are still looking at what the technology approach might be, but clearly mobile app might be it. So each of the three of you is in a slightly different position and hopefully can learn a lot from what Eva, Xilef, and Mauro has done already. So Katalin, maybe we give the floor to you first. So either you could put a few questions or you could tell us a little bit about the experience and share it with us, and then still ask a few questions. But try and keep it to not more than 3 minutes.
Okay, thank you. Hello, everybody. My name is Katalin Frangula. I'm working for the Brasov Metropolitan Agency. So just in order to be short, I want to say that in the SMARTA 2 project, we are trying to develop a web-based app that would facilitate carpooling and also the combination of carpooling and public transport in moving people from rural areas around Brasov city to Brasov and back. And I have, let's say, an extensive line of questions, but I'll just ask two of them, which I feel are more important, and then leave the floor for the other panelists. So just a first one would be for Saverio, and also if Mauro, if you think you can also add some words, is about the apps. First of all, Saverio, great presentation about the way apps have evolved. And my question would be, in your experience with MEMEX and also during the documentation for this presentation, would you say that the level C of apps, the most complex, appears as an evolution of levels A and B, or does it appear naturally? And here maybe also Xilef has some words about Shuttle. And the second question would be basically to all panelists. would you say that the apps, or let's say the technology aspects of public transport, are basically a development of the mobility service in order to survive and meet the needs of a new generation of clients? Or is it, let's say, something with which the public transport service could do without, but is better within? To put it more easily, I would say, is the app essential, or is maybe just something to come to meet the needs of a new generation of clients? That's it for me for the moment, but if times allow, I would have some more questions. Thank you.
Okay, thank you very much, Catalin. And Catalin, one of the points to make here is that we hope this is just the beginning of conversations among yourselves. You know, our projects come to an end. Mamba is ended already. We finish at the end of December. SMARTA 2 finishes early next year. But for all of you at the sites, your job continues. And what we hope is that we can use this networking opportunity to begin conversations among you. For example, Burgobus and Kilkenny are already talking with each other, and I think Kilkenny wants to talk to Valorana and so forth. So we hope we're just opening the door on conversations that you will continue afterwards. Okay, I will stop at that point. Perhaps Saverio, Shilef, and then Mauro, if you have some responses you might like to give to Catalin. And please keep them short, and we can get some questions from the other panelists then. Thank you. Saverio, maybe you go first.
Thank you, Ben. Yes, I will try to answer as short as possible to Catalin. First of all, thanks for your question, for your observation. The first point, I think that it is not mandatory that the third group, let's say, or the third class of the app comes from an evolution of the other groups. It depends mainly on the level of agreement and cooperation that you are able to establish in the local stakeholder and organization, mobility and non-mobility related. In particular, if you are planning to sell or to provide integrated package of services, or selling integrated product like interoperable ticket that require agreement between the stakeholders in terms of revenue share, for example. The second, personally, I assume that the app is, of course, a new way to provide services to the customers of public transport, a way that is more familiar with the current one, with the technological and social trend. But I think this is more a destination point of an evolution that comes from the consolidation of the basic system, ITS system, that provide data for the app.
Shilef, any thoughts from your side? You're on mute.
Yes, if the demand will, grow naturally, I think it is. But, the app facilitates the operation of the system. So whether you do it in real time with up-to-date information, that's important. And more and more people will start using smartphones. That's something that's, we see it every day. And although from Shuttle we understand there are people who are not used to smartphone, like the senior population I mentioned, we believe it's important to provide a call center, that option for these particular people that prefer still prefer to call on or a hotline, just for us to make those petitions for them. So it's a natural growth. Yes, you saw the situation how it was before, and now the way it has improved the lives of people in general, being able to mobilize from the valley to other parts of the city center. So I think that's what all I have to contribute.
Mauro, I think you are going to say something?
For the second ask, it isn't only trend to do an app for PT user, public transport user. I answer with our numbers. We in the 28 in the year 2018 we have 12,000 users of our app. In the 2019 we have 20,000 our app. In the September 2020 we have around 30,000 users in our app, divided around 10,000 in iOS device and 20,000 around in Android devices. So this to tell you that it was a channel very important. The app, it is a channel very important to provide information not only in our cities where are the most number of our bus stopped, but I could say mostly in suburban and extra-urban area where are low density area, because for example, to purchase a ticket, our office in certain areas, in certain geographic area, is far from the position where live some citizen, some inhabitants, and it is important instead to have a tool in house, in his home, to purchase directly the ticket, and the same to know the scheduled timetable of the lines, and mainly to know when to arrive the next bus that interest to our citizens.
So Mauro, I think if I'm hearing you correctly, you're saying that it's an essential tool, an essential part of the outreach and the service. Eva, I think you were going to say something?
Yes, I agree. I totally agree with Shilef. The app is essential according to the age of the users. For the youngest, it's essential, but for the elderly, it's important to keep the phone. Our main users are people over 65 years old, and they prefer to talk to someone.
So
Thank
different
you.
channels to do the same thing, suited to the different user groups. John, if I could turn to you, you're running Ring-a-Link in Kilkenny, Carlow, Wicklow. You've running mostly DRT services of relatively low frequency for social needs, but also some other services as well. You guys have been there for the best part of 20 years, and you've been using MobiRouter as a booking and reservation tool. But I think you want to move on a little bit, or you want to look at the scope for mobile apps. So maybe you'd either give us some perspective of what it is you hope to do, or maybe there's some particular challenges or questions that you'd like to ask of the other panelists, that might help you in the decisions you have to make or what you'd implement over the next year or two.
Thank you, Brendan. It's great to be joining you all. And I'd also like to thank you, Brendan, for your input to us here and assistance to us here in Ring-a-Link. It is really invaluable. Thank you. Now, it's been very good to listen to you all. And when I listened to Zilef and Eva in particular, I can see that Valorana is very like where we would like to see ourselves, assuming that everything works out correctly for us. There is the link between us that there's quite a lot of rural, it's a rural-ish type area, if I'm correct in understanding you. And again, the over 65s. Now, so there are a couple of things. We'd like to see a younger demographic traveling with us. We are investigating the idea of using a mobile app. At the moment, we don't. We have very good, for want of a better phrase, call center here at back office. So I'd like to ask a couple of questions, and I'll keep them, because time is limited, Brendan, I'll keep them maybe to two, if that's okay. One would be have you found, panel, the use of an app to simplify the back office function? For instance, the reconciliation of fares, passengers, and income from a particular service would be one question. And how has it saved time? The other question is for form of the two-piece. Are there any restrictions of the app system that you have found, and if so, what are they? And then part B of that would be, how many users of the app, and I think, Mauro, you reflected on this, many users of the app does it need for it to be feasible? Thank you very much.
Okay, thanks, John. I would ask Zilef maybe, or Eva, you might answer first, and then Mauro, but please keep the answers fairly short, because we still want to give Karl-Heinz the opportunity to ask some questions. Of course, you'll still be panelists in the next session as well. Thank you.
John, can I ask you to repeat the first question, please? I apologize for that.
No problem. Sorry, I've been trying to speak slow because I know I've been cut out when I've been abroad before. Now, does the app help simplify the back office functionality in terms of reconciling the fares from the passengers, the use of passes, the travel passes, etc., and help reconcile the numbers of passengers with the income and the reporting functionality? Does that make sense, Zilef?
Well, yeah. Actually, no, it's okay. I have our account manager is also in the webinar, and I don't know if we can have access to the question as well. But I mean, the app is important to keep, because we're talking about it's technology. Of course, the app, it's an important essential part. But like Eva mentioned, and we said several times, keeping the call center, especially when you have a population over 65, which is your case, is something that they need to have, because sometimes it's not because they don't know how to use it, but because they are used to having somebody to book the trips for them. So that it's, I would say, it's a must in case of operation, but it depends on the case, because we have a case in Italy, for example, which is the totally opposite. In this case, which is Vimercate, is again a suburban area, and the population surprisingly is plus 65 and up. And one day the municipality said, you know what, if this is, we're promoting this platform, we cannot afford to have a call center. And they couldn't afford the call center. And they said, okay, we're gonna move on, and people will have to figure out, of course, with the help of a very good marketing campaign, which is what Valirana has done here, very big from the beginning. And surprisingly, in Vimercate, which is this senior population town, surprisingly, we don't know how they have learned to use the app. So it's very important from the beginning, prior and during the implementation, to reach out and educate the population on how to educate them.
Just to be clear, though, I think that in John's question, it wasn't about getting rid of the call center or the booking or reservation, but rather with demand responsive transport people, we have, compared to just walking and public transport, we have to deal with people before they travel. And then with many of the clients, there's an administrative side that has to be dealt with afterwards, not only dealing with them, but then also bundling that information and passing it on to the administration or whoever is the funding authority, and there may be multiple. So I suppose part of the question is whether, and we can revert to this at a later time, but is whether using the app then helps to automate a lot of processes so that the call center can still handle the people who most need it, but that the more typical ones, that can be semi-automated, and that releases time and administration, especially if your numbers are increasing and you find that the call center and the administration becomes the bottleneck when you move beyond a couple of buses and a small handful of people. Maybe at this stage.
Thank you, Brendan, yes.
Yeah,
Right,
Karl-Heinz, I'd like to invite you to speak, and if there are some observations or questions, and then depending on the time, we might pick them up in the second part of the panel, but it's really good that we hear from you, Karl-Heinz, on which are the issues that you're picking from this conversation.
Yes, thank you. It's quite an interesting discussion, and I'm very glad to see all these good examples. At first, I have a couple of questions, but I want to just ask two things. The first is to Eva, to Valirano. So it's a service on demand. So my question is, did you ask the people about their needs in advance, or did you start with your system and waited what will happen and then continued your service? That's the first question. And the second question is to Xilev. I was very impressed about the shuttles software, because I think it's exactly that what we do need in our Bürgerbus project in Oberes Klantal, and because we are driven all in voluntary service. We have no professionals at all. It's all volunteer that works for our system. And so the question is, actually, I think you have about 110 users in your system, and it works well and it's growing. So what do you think is a maximum of users in your system to be satisfied in this construction of service on demand?
Can I jump in?
But please, brief answer, please, Sheila.
Yeah, I mean, everything is scalable. In Valirana, for example, because of the size, the population, we have only one vehicle transporting, 60 passengers per day. Of course, we always sit down and analyze your particular case, geography, topography. Valirana is a valley. In your area, we will have to see. But we usually say in an area of 3 to 5 square kilometers, it's not a rule, but we say that one vehicle could provide very good waiting and traveling times. Everything's scalable. When you're not sure about something and something new, we always tell you to start progressively. We start with one vehicle, try it. Valirana, for example, would like to increase with another vehicle because of the current situation, it's not going to be possible right now. So hopefully in 2021, 22, when everything gets better. But case by case is different. I would say I would like to see the location you have, sit down with our mobility planners and tell you the feasibility of the project. But keep in mind this, like, it's not a rule, like I said. On 3 to 5 square kilometers, one vehicle, we could provide good waiting times. And I'm talking about 7-minute time, 10 minutes waiting time for the passenger to be acceptable. Otherwise, you know, people get impatient and they say, okay, let me use my private car and I'll get to my destination. So, but it will depend, okay? So we'll be happy to sit down with you and see your particular area of operation that you have in mind.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, thank you, Silef. I think we're 15 minutes over time. No problem. We can manage that. But I think it's good now if we move on to the second set of presentations. And first of all, thank you very much to our speakers for the first session, and thank you also to our panelists. There's some really good questions coming through there. First lesson learned: we need another session, and almost certainly there's the room to have maybe something that's more like a round table among the interested sites. That if you are interested in doing that, we'll see how we can facilitate that, because you clearly need a longer time to have an interactive discussion with each other, and we'll see what we can organize in that score. But again, thank you very much to Silef, Eva, and Mauro for your presentations, and Karl-Heinz, Kathleen, and John for your very considered questions. I'd like to hand back now to Andrea, who will moderate the next session, and there we will be dealing with apps for shared mobility that are more organized with the car rather than the bus type. And we'll also have a presentation from Claudio on the data side. I'll join you again in about 30 minutes for our next panel session. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Brendan. Very nice and interesting discussion. I really hope that there will be some other afterwards. So we can go immediately forward to the next session, next part of this webinar. We have another very interesting presentation, two sites. One that is the Trikala SMARTA 2 demonstrator. We have a presentation from Christina and Lazzaro from eTrikala. And then we have a presentation of the experience in Vejle in Denmark from Marianne Pedersen from Nabogo. And afterward, the third presentation will be held by Claudio, that will share with us some important consideration about transport data protocols and ITS directive. So I will immediately leave the floor to Christina and Lazarus for the presentation of the Trikala experience. So you can open your camera and your microphone, and you can start. So, hello. The floor is yours.
So, just where's the share screen? Okay. Okay, perhaps now you can see my screen.
Yes, if you can put full screen mode, great. Okay, thank you very much.
So, hello everybody. My name is Christina Karaberi, and together with my colleague Lazaros Giannakos, we represent the Greek company Trikala. And today we will present to you the Trikala Smart 2 demonstrator. I will start with some more general information about the city, the mobility problems we face, and how we believe that this demonstrator will help us address them, and all the work that has been done so far. And Lazarus will focus mostly on the technical part. So, Trikala is located in Thessaly, in central Greece. It is a city with 82,000 people. 35% of them are spread on the surrounding rural areas. Now, on one hand, our city is considered a smart city, equipped with smart services in several sectors that are monitored from our control room at the City Hall. But on the other hand, one of the main challenges that we face is the traffic congestion at the city center. Most of the activities, commercial, residential, institutional activities are taking place at the city center. The whole situation is further aggravated due to the coexistence of the open air market and the local bus station at the same place, along with a lack of parking spaces and illegal parking. A second problem is that the rural areas around the city are underserved by the public transport, meaning that the bus routes are not very punctual or very often. As a result, the mobility largely depends on individual car use. There are approximately 50,000 car owners in the city that are using their cars on a daily basis. This has a negative impact on the environment, causes severe traffic congestion in the city, but also has a social impact because there are people nowadays that can no longer afford to own a car or to use their car on a daily basis, and therefore cannot access essential services at the city center. So through our demonstrator, through our SMARTA 2 demonstrator, we would like to assist those people by setting up this carpooling platform. This service includes an online application that allows citizens to access real-time public transport information along with available carpooling options. The application also includes a booking system for services that are such as storage lockers, wheelchair scooters, and bicycles that are currently offered at the info point at the city center. So for our target group, people that live in two villages around the city, Megala Kalivia and Megarchi, which are pilot areas, they will no longer need to feel obliged to take their car to drive to the city center. They can go online to the SMARTA 2 application, see exactly the time that the bus arrives at the nearest bus stop, explore the possibility for any carpooling options at the area, and as soon as they arrive at the city center, they will already have pre-booked a bicycle to go around, or a locker to leave their belongings, or a wheelchair scooter that is adjustable to any kind of wheelchair in case they have mobility issues. Through our SMARTA 2 application, we are digitalizing existing mobility services and adding some new ones. The project was introduced to the local community in January during our consultation workshop. During this workshop, all the stakeholders were identified and invited, meaning the municipality, the authorities from the rural areas, the bus company, the taxi drivers, even the subcontractor company that has been chosen to deploy the application. Through this workshop, we introduced the idea of SMARTA 2 application. We finalized with the stakeholders the services to be deployed and the pilot areas that were identified and finalized as well. More importantly, we managed to gain the support and engagement of all the stakeholders at this early stage. For the months to follow, we had weekly communication with the subcontractor and all the stakeholders in order to deploy the application on time. The application was on time deployed. It was ready to go to be piloted in April. However, due to the COVID-19 situation, we had to cease everything for at least 5 months due to the lockdown restrictions. From June and end of June, actually, that all these restrictions were started to be lifted. We thought it was a good time to introduce the pilot to the public and reintroduce the application to the public. So we had our official initializing pilot period event and some press releases in July 2020. After a month, we had our demonstration workshop. Again, we invited all the stakeholders. We couldn't have an open event due to the COVID-19 restriction, so this workshop was just for specific stakeholders, where we presented the final form of the application and finalized some pending issues. But at the same time, in order to promote the application, since we are in this pilot period right now, to the rest of the public, we have prepared the promo video that we have just finalized and will show you today after our presentation. That will have a major impact to the public altogether. A major part of our demonstrator is the way that we communicate at this early stage the SMARTA 2 application and how we promote the idea to the local community to choose sustainable mobility solutions offered from this application. For this reason, we have already prepared, with the help of White Research, brochures for the authorities and the citizens. The posters that explain how to use the app step by step are already ready, and there will be different posters in both rural areas with different messages, different nudges that will measure the impact of each nudge to the local community from the number of people that will register to the application in the end. So this is my part. Lazarus will continue with more technical stuff, and at the end of the presentation, you will be able to see for the very first time the promo video of our application.
Okay, I will go on with the presentation. Christina mentioned the rural mobility challenges for the municipality of Trikala. I will just say that they concentrate in those 4 axes involved, which are public transport services, ICT services in transportation and shared mobility, intermodal service coordination, and public awareness and attitude. Here you can see the initial screen of the application, the mobility challenges that are going to be addressed through the development of the deployment of the application, concern the modal shift towards sustainable forms of mobility, through the provision of multimodal travel patterns and planning, including the carpooling service, online real-time information about bus routes, on-demand services, and the online booking service. There were several challenges during the development and the deployment of our application. The investment of two telematics services provided by two different public transport providers for Megala Kalivia and Megarhi respectively was challenging. This has had as a positive result to strengthen our relationship and be in close cooperation with both public transport providers. Another challenge was the training of the InfoPoint employees in operating the booking system, since there was not a fixed operating program for the InfoPoint the last period of time, as well as there was a switching of employees. So we had to train several employees or monitor the administrative part of the application ourselves. Public awareness is addressed through a well-tailored communication strategy, as Christina mentioned. And of course, data protection issues were taken into consideration through the development of the application. In order to use the application, one should consent to the terms of use. So now the application is functional, and we have conducted a SWOT analysis from our so far experience. Concerning the strengths, it is about a user-friendly app that incorporates all mobility services provided in the municipality of Trikala, and while introducing new ones. So we talk about mass deployment, providing multimodal travel patterns and planning. The application is available on Android and iOS, and it is scalable. This is quite important as it gives us the opportunity to incorporate more services in the future. And another strong feature of the application is the data collection, that given the importance of data in mobility planning. On the other hand, the application is not available offline, and the users must be familiarized with the new technologies. Also, while there is information about routing step by step, there is no dynamic routing available. Concerning the opportunities, we set the ground for the familiarization with multimodal transportation and shared mobility. The expansion of the operating segment of the carpooling service, as well as the embedment of new services, are already under consideration. As a matter of fact, we plan to embed autonomous vehicles and urban air vehicle services in the near future within other projects. Integrating ticketing is another service that can add value to our application, while nudging incentives for users are already under discussions. Furthermore, we have the chance to understand real demand through data collection and apply it for future planning. And finally, having that strong asset in our hands, it gives us the opportunity for funding incentives in the future concerning other mobility projects. Of course, there's the threat of no public acceptance and depreciation of the app, as well as the misuse of it. However, we believe that this will not be the case. So coming to a conclusion, we expect a reduction of the number of cars driving from the surrounding communities to the city of Trikala, with the introduction to the local rural community the idea of sustainable mobility and multimodal transportation. In this interconnected world, we see great potential for this application to be successful. That's all. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Christina and Lazaru. I think there is also a video that we will now try to show. So we will leave the floor to the organizer, to Lucia, and we'll see if the video is working. So okay. In the meantime, thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Let's see if the video is working. Yeah, we always need some minutes to start the video. Let's see. Yep. Probably we have some difficulties in running the video, so maybe we can try to see it afterwards, if that's okay for you.
It's on the YouTube channel as well. If George, are you
Okay.
on?
It's okay if you bear with me. 2 seconds, it's working now. Yeah, just
Okay,
a
so
second.
let's wait further minutes, no problem.
You'll be the first ones to see it. So
Okay, so we need to see it. Yeah, absolutely, absolutely.
Can you see my screen? Just to be sure. You have to see my screen, but I don't know if you can see it now.
Not yet. No, we were hearing the audio, but not the video, I think. No, unfortunately, we are not seeing the video. Yeah.
You can see the video?
No.
Oh God, it's running on my computer. It should run very well.
haven't shared the screen actually.
Okay, I'll try again. It's a nice video. Okay, just a second.
Yeah.
Otherwise, I will make you all watch it on YouTube to have more views.
It would have been easier to have the YouTube link, but I'll see. I'll make you Andrea presenter and I'll take it away from you. Just a second. Many apologies.
I'll also try to share my screen just to make a tentative. So if you can make me the presenter, I can try to see whether on my laptop it is working. So I don't know if actually you are seeing my screen now. Not yet, I think. No? No, okay.
No, not really.
Now, my suggestion, if you allow me, we'll have the, let's say, the video immediately after the panel, if you agree, yeah, and we can sort it later.
Sure. Yeah,
Many
sure.
apologies.
So, no problem.
And
I think...
meanwhile, send me the link for your YouTube. Maybe it's easier.
Yeah, sure. So yeah, the video will go afterwards. So thanks again, Cristina, Lazzaro, and we can pass to the next presentation. So it's interesting to see that we are passing from the DRT to the conventional and now to more intermodal solution and ride sharing solution. So I will leave the floor now to Marianne, and please, if you can activate your camera so that you can also share your screen and with your presentation. So the floor is yours.
Thank you. Can you see my screen or?
Yes.
And my presentation, can you see that as well?
Yes, full screen. Okay, great. Thank you.
Very good. So my name is Marianne Petersen, and I work for Nabucco, but today I represent Vejle municipality because they were part of the MAMBA project, which is unfortunately ended now. So Vejle is a very large, in square kilometers, it's big. It has roughly 115 now inhabitants, and 1/3 of them are located in the center of Vejle. The rest is spread out in the rural areas. So the The pilot area of the Mamba project in Vejle is a small area called Smestrup. It's only 780 inhabitants. On a daily basis, they have 4 buses, 2 in the morning, 2 in the afternoon to Vejle, and that's it. And it takes, you can see, roughly 15 to 20 minutes to reach a larger city, Vejle, Fredericia, and Kolding. So it's very central, placed between these 3 cities. Here I actually have a video of the Nabogo app that we developed within the Mamba project. So if it's possible, I would very much like to run it now.
I will try. Just a second, if you give me a second, Marianne. Yeah, just a second.
Yes.
Okay, Marianne, I don't know if you want to add something more on this.
Yes, just a little bit. Okay, thank you. So what we did was that before we launched or developed the app, we talked with the local council. We talked with the citizens to hear what they think, what they need, what they feel like. Do they want ride sharing in the first place, or and after we had a lot of talks and a lot of meetings and surveys, we went live, which is the 3 pictures bottom of the slide. We went to supermarkets, we talked with people, helped them get on the platform, and they really embraced the solution. So this one, you know, from the video, this was before, this was a week after, which is a lot more than they had already. To continue to make people want to use this system, we had to make a plan for how to continue after the Mamba project. So we developed like a full-scale, if you can say that, marketing plan. With Facebook, with Instagram, with competitions, with sponsor contracts, with a lot of different things, just to keep the solution in mind in the local areas. Otherwise, they will forget it again. So I think after after working in Mamba, Navigo needs to continue to promote the solution, otherwise people will not use it. So we started in September last year in Smithville, and today we are actually quite out in we are in 15 municipalities across Denmark. We are in Sweden, we are talking with Norway and Netherlands and Belgium, Albania, Montenegro. So we feel the need for the solution, also because we integrate with the national travel planner. So we feel the interest for that. In Denmark today, we have in our system 250,000 offered trips, and we have 80,000 requesting a trip, and that's since September last year, including a corona pandemic. So I think that's actually quite okay. That was short from me, but yeah, that's what we have been doing in the Mamba project.
Yeah, thank you very much, Marianne. Very interesting, and also happy to see that you are looking ahead with other opportunities. I would like now to ask to Lucia whether we can try to play the video from Trikala. Let's see. Yeah.
Okay. Thank you.
Let's see whether now it works.
It works. It should work.
Yes. Okay, good. Although my audio was not very good, but I think it was good to see the real experience or the field on the ground. So thanks again, Lazzaro and Cristina. Thanks, Marianne. We move quickly to the last presentation we have from Claudio. So Claudio, if you can try to stay within 10 minutes, that will be great. So the floor is yours.
Thank you, Andrea. Okay, can you see my screen?
Yes.
Okay, thank you. Okay, hello to everyone. I am Claudio Disperati, and I am the IT sector responsible for MEMEX. And my presentation deals with the importance of the standard protocols in order to implement the IT system in the public transport sector. First of all, I'd like to underline that the concept introduced before by my colleagues, by Saverio and the others, that behind the real-time passenger information system, there are other systems and tools in order to collect and to elaborate the data, which has to be visualized and dispatched through the several communication channels as the display at the bus stop, the web portal, and the mobile app. And in order to understand better what I mean, we can focus our attention on the SMARTA pilot site of Kilkenny County. And in this case, the main objective is to implement a real-time passenger information system. And in order to achieve this goal, we have to connect and to integrate the data from the management environment to the new system to acquire and to implement as the AVM system and so on, and the real-time passenger information system. In order to support the client, in this case, with the SMARTA consortium, help the client in order to define the needs, the requirements, the functional specification, and in order to define the tender document. And in this slide, you can see the tender document index, and in particular, you can see that it's divided into three main parts. The first one is the part A, which deals with the object, requirements, function, and operation. The second part, the part B, is about the tender cost, the timeline, and the contract prescription, sorry. And the third part, the part C, is about the proposal presentation and evaluation criteria. All these parts present several sections, and all these sections are very important to guarantee the client, but for this presentation, you can see that we have highlighted one section that is the 8.4, that is about the data source and the standard communication protocol. And the standard protocol are very important and fundamental for the client, because with the standard protocol, we can guarantee that each solution or provider of this solution should be easily replaceable. In fact, we have to consider an example as a current scenario, an example, a group of tools and systems as the planning and programming management software, the fleet monitoring system, the real-time passenger information system in terms of physical display and mobile app. But in the future, the client could have a need to replace one of these systems or supply, and an example as visualized in the slide, we can replace the real-time passenger information system. And through the use of the standard protocols, we could avoid, an example, grid service both for the public transport operator and the end user, and we can guarantee the interoperability between the different systems and the implementation in a plug-and-play way. So, for this reason, we have required for the Kilkenny County two main protocols that are the CD standard protocols and the GTFS protocol. And the first one, the CD, is suitable for to transfer the timetable data and this protocol is composed by several modules, several XML files. And in example, these files are suitable to transfer the static and the dynamics data. In fact, we have an example, the CDPT, which is about the planned timetable service data, whereas the CDET deals with the estimated timetable service data. From the point of view of the GTFS protocol, we can say that is suitable to transfer the topological data, and also in this case we have several TXT files, and each one of these files is suitable to transfer several kind of data. As an example, the trips list and the bus stop list. And in this slide, we can see the architecture introduced before, and we can see how this protocol could be adopted in a scenario similar to the Kilkenny County one. And in example, we can see that from the management environment, and in particular from the management tool to manage the topological service data, we can transfer the data to the other system and to the real-time passenger information system through the GTFS protocol, whereas to transfer the data from the tool which manages the transport company scheduled the service data, we can use the CD protocol. And in this slide, you can see also that is mentioned the NAP, the National Access Point, because the EU Commission, the EU required that from each new ET system, the data should be integrated and transferred to a national access point. In fact, through the Directive 2017-1926, that is a supplement and an integration of the Directive 2010-40, the EU required that each ET system should be able to transfer the data, dynamic and static, to a national access point, and in the future to have the possibility to aggregate and to integrate this data into an European access point. And also in this case are indicated the standard protocol to use to transfer the data, and in example, for the urban mobility sector, the protocols indicated is the DATEX2, both for the statics and the dynamics data, whereas for the local public transport, the standard protocol indicated is the NetX protocol for the topological data and the CD for the timetable data. And only a few words to explain the difference between NetX and the GTFS protocol. We can say that the GTFS protocol is a sub-protocol of NetX, because with NetX we have the possibility to transfer data concerning the overall service, whereas with the GTFS protocol we have the possibility to transfer data for the current daily service. So in order to conclude my presentation, I can repeat that, and this is a very important concept for us, that behind the data there is one or more system platform, and that is a fundamental step, the integration of the data between the different modules and the systems. But we can also say that for the ET system environment, it is fundamental to use the standard protocols in order to have the possibility to implement the system in a plug-and-play way and to achieve the interoperability between systems. That's all. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Claudia. I think you provided us with very interesting information. I will immediately pass to the second panel discussion. So I will invite Brendan, Christina, Lazarus, Marianne, Claudio, John, Carl, and Katalin to open your camera and your microphone and to ask questions. So Brendan, please, the floor is yours.
Okay, as everybody's putting on their cameras, first of all, a big thank you again to Christina, Lazarus, to Marianne and to Claudio for their presentations. Particularly this last one from Claudio, I think it reminds us of the value of putting the presentations up on the web, because there was a lot of information in it that really, it was good that you introduce it, but they're the kind of things that we need to sit down, take some time, familiarize ourselves with it. So thank you, Claudio, for presenting it. And this is something that I think we all need to look at our leisure. When we designed this workshop, we actually deliberately thought we'd open it and close it with a technology presentation and then have the practices in the middle. Because at the end of the day, when you start this, you need to make some fundamental choices, as Saverio presented. Which is the fundamental type of app that you're going to implement, and what's your long-term strategy? We then hear from 4 quite different sites who have done quite different applications, and they presented different aspects of that, so we get a very good idea of the practice. What are the mobility services, the functionalities of the apps, the user-facing facilities and design, and then fundamentally it's about business as well. How is that handled? And then we close out with the platform. Whatever you decide, somebody has to design it, procure it, build it, and operate it. And that is actually quite complex. So I think what we've seen in all the sites is that we see I'm not sure if it's simply a procurement, it's more a partnership between the client and the technology supplier, where each of them is bringing something to the table. And I don't think any of them is as simple as going out and buying something and running it yourself. So I think there's this been interesting mix of arrangements that we see in all of the sites, where the technology supplier is never merely a vendor, but is actually a partner in some way in the design, the development, or indeed in the ongoing operation. So there are just a few observations I'll make. I think everybody has come onto the panel, the panelists and the speakers now. So maybe we begin in the same way, that maybe Katalin, you might like to ask a couple of questions or observations, John again, and then Karl-Heinz. We're about 15 minutes, almost 20 minutes over our scheduled time, but Lucia has very kindly agreed that we can keep the conversation going until 16:30. If we finish earlier than that, so be it, but we have some additional time, so we have until 16:30 to continue the discussion, because I think people are quite interested. So Katalin, maybe you might just kick off the discussions again, but again I would ask our panelists, or our speakers rather, please try and keep your responses concise, and that way we can get through a lot more questions. Thank you.
Hi everybody. First of all, congratulations to all the speakers from this panel who already done their presentation. Even though the focus is on technology, I want to ask Cristina and then Marianne to give some consideration of how did the technology play the role given the current COVID situation, because Cristina, you faced the challenges of the COVID situation in obviously in Europe, but in Tricala, and Marianne, you mentioned that somehow, in spite of COVID, your user numbers, so to speak, are up. So I'm trying to understand maybe how you used technology as a facilitator in this new context, if possible. Thank you.
I can start. I must admit, from March until June, the Navigo app was closed, so nobody used it during that time because of the COVID situation here in Denmark. So at that point, nobody could use it. We simply closed it because everybody was staying at home anyway. So we were not even giving that option. So we reopened it here was it in June, I think, or July? And since then we also faced kind of some problems with having people coming onto the system. But we very much use online marketing to just keep in top of people's minds to say it's still here. You can still use it. You can use it instead of using, well, not instead, but to to not have too many people in public buses, you can also drive together, but that's also very difficult because then people get scared and what if they sit on my back seat and they have COVID? So it's difficult in these times to offer that service.
Okay, I will continue. I will answer in there are two different periods about the COVID-19 situation with two different outcomes. The first one is from March up to June, where we were in total lockdown, as I said, meaning there was absolutely no reason to use the application because there were no info point for the services to be booked. There were no bus routes taking place. People were not allowed to be more than two in a car. You know the situation hardly. So things were bad. There was absolutely no reason to have an application because you're not going out. There was no reason to go outside. But after June, all these measures have been lifted. And although we had another small episode of pandemic in Trikala the last 2 weeks, we were on level 3. There are 4 levels of risk, and we were on level 3. Now we're better. We don't have so many cases. Although on level 3, none of the services were affected because the buses are doing their regular schedule. Of course, people have to keep distance and wear masks. People are allowed to be inside the car as long as they wear masks and don't belong to the same family. And the info point is fully operating. So I believe that this will not change unless we have a huge problem all around the world again. Okay. And so how am I going to use this in favor, the technology in favor of the COVID-19? During the demonstration workshop, what I mentioned to the bus station owners is that for an elderly person, not to go at the bus station and wait for 20 minutes along with other people is a benefit. You know, if he goes there the last 5 minutes to take the bus. So it's using the service in your benefit due to COVID-19. The same thing about the info point. Not to go inside the small info point, it's a small building, to wait to take a bus or to wait to put your things in a locker. If you have pre-booked this whole service, there's no point going there earlier or there's no point waiting there. So you are actually helping them to prevent having a lot of, how to say, face-to-face interaction with other people. So that was a marketing trick that we used after the COVID-19. But this is because things are more or less in a status that they're not very bad. If things go bad again, I don't know what we're going to do.
John, any questions from your side? You can either continue on that strand of the conversation or you can start some totally new question, whatever you have on your mind.
It's just one question, Brendan. Thank you. Again, thank you very much. It's very good to see Greece and Denmark. Also looking at both cities, that's my appetite for travel whenever COVID ends. I'd just like to ask you, what are the boundaries or limitations of the technology that you have found when implementing the app, and how did you test the app? I know they're very practical questions, but I think practically in some ways. Thank you very much.
John, if I could just clarify, when you're asking about the boundaries or limitations, do you mean in terms of what can be done or offered to the customer, or in terms of the practical operations like communications and so forth?
The boundaries, Brendan, particularly from the boundaries for the operators such as ourselves, such as not Navigo, but the operator in Vela and in Trikala. You know, so what are the limitations and what constraints are there?
Marianne, you might start with that one.
I'm not sure if I understand the question right then. Can you, sorry. So do you mean if there is any, no, please try and explain me, sorry.
Okay. God, I'm awfully sorry it happened the last question as well. It's okay.
The effort
what do you have to be aware of? What do you have to be aware of what could go wrong? Does that make sense?
No.
You mean like in no-shows, or that maybe a person who has booked technology, you don't collect them, and how you monitor and check that the person who booked is actually being collected, and how you respond if you miss them and things like that?
If I understand it correctly, so what we do in Vejle is that we have a rating system in the solution. So when you're finished with a ride share, you rate the driver, and the driver rate the passenger, and actually that's the only thing we can do. We of course, when we talk to people, we say to them, if you don't show up, it's bad because you leave another person in your own small community standing, and that's not good. And we haven't experienced it yet. So in that point, that's the only thing we can do. We have the rating system.
But maybe that raises a broader question about new responsibilities. Is that in the past, if we run a service and it goes or it doesn't go, and you walk down to the bus stop and get it, or we publish information on the web and that's it, we make no great obligation to you. But the more we go with apps and services that are tailored to the customer, do we now find ourselves with a level of responsibility that we didn't have before? And then where do we draw the boundaries ourselves as to what it is we're promising the customer and how much obligation is there on us to deliver? So, I mean, that's obviously an issue for you, but I think it's also an issue in Trikala, in Valderrama, and in Toscana, and anywhere else. Or is this territory that we're still exploring?
If you can see it in two ways, because one way is if I go and sit in the Nabogo chair, then I can say my responsibility ends when I offer the trip, and if a person asked or requested and they drive together, that's fine. If not, that's not my problem, and we have the rating system. But I do also understand if you go to the public, if I sit in the Vejle chair, it's different because it's a public offer and they have other responsibilities that the private does. But they haven't asked for it when we developed the solution. So I guess for their sake, it's kind of also they use Bamba to test this. So yeah, I don't know about Trikala.
From you, exactly, Christina, maybe from your side, any perspective on this, or it's not an issue?
Okay, so two things. Because we were not on a rush during the COVID-19 to use the application, because there was no reason, we had plenty of time, approximately 5 months, from time to time, with the help of the subcontractor, to test, make some small unofficial pilot testing period for us to see if things work. We had plenty of time. We never expected to have my 5 months just sitting and looking, oh, that's a nice application to be used in the future. So this is one point. The second is to see user acceptance and user satisfaction of the service. This is to be deployed the following weeks. There will be a questionnaire on the application that will measure and will give us a specific, the idea that the users have toward the services. And we were thinking also to have this kind of questionnaire that will evaluate the user's experience, disseminated through our local media and sites to see, not now, after 2 or 3 months for the pilot, to give us a more general perspective about the whole service. So it is something that could be deployed now.
Okay.
I don't know if I answered your question.
No, I think that's helpful, Christina. I think clearly when you're in a pilot, you have got a level of freedom and flexibility. But if you move into a full-scale, wide-scale deployment, both in the geographic coverage and the level of intensity, and if you're going to make this part of your permanent operations, maybe a new set of obligations come forward. And what might be interesting as well is to compare, let's say, the way in which Claudio looks at something, that with the ITS, we can't be too flexible or too forgiving. It just has to be done the right way from the beginning. But we also try to foresee the way in which standards or information or scale may emerge. We have to foresee that at the beginning. And maybe that's a bit of discipline that we might need to bring in from the operational side as well, is, okay, we do something as a pilot, but nevertheless, we start to set expectations with our customers and our politicians and our administrators that very quickly we find ourselves locked into, and that 2 years, 3 years, 4 years time, there might be a much harder expectation of our obligation and responsibilities. And we need to maybe think these through at the early stage. Karl-Heinz, you've been patient. So from the perspective of your organization, which, as you remind us, is very much based on volunteers and the goodwill of the community, nevertheless, it's a practical operation that must be done as well.
Yes, it's again quite interesting to hear all these different apps and all the different perspectives of the actors. And for me, it's quite a point as a way of easy to use. That's very important for me. And so that's my question. Is there any experience in connection with the apps? Do the people prefer the multiple use app? You can do everything, book the ticket, have real-time information and everything, or do they prefer just a kind of one-trick pony? I'm sitting here and I want to go there and push one button and get a kind of service. So what is your experience about the wishes, the ideas of the users to accept all these things we can offer?
I can start. Here in our project, we really found out that it should be easy to use, but they need all the information. Okay. So if we go out, and say we have a ride-sharing solution, they will say no, we don't want it because it is a competition to our public transport. So we had to combine these two to say, but we don't compete with the buses. We actually show everything. So you can actually take a ride-sharing solution to the bus stop, and then from the bus stop to the train station, and so on and so forth. So that's what we experienced here. We also, with another municipality, made a solution with a village bus where they can book that via the same app and pay for the bus and open like a small box for the key to start the trip and put in the key again to end the trip. And the payment is always done via the app, so it's easy. But they needed that in the same space as the other one. So it's very complex, but it should be very simple.
Okay. Katalin,
it's a very sorry, Karl-Heinz. But it's yeah.
Katalin, maybe from your experience in Brasov, you've gone a fair bit of the way in designing your app, and I think it's ready to launch when the conditions permit. Did you explore this a lot, the ease of use and working with the different segments of the population, and also in addition to the ease of use, exactly as Karl-Heinz is saying, is yeah, we could provide 57 different functions, but maybe there's only 4 that they really need, and should we focus there?
Well, actually, the real in our, let's say, limited experience here, the real tester is actually when you put the app to use. During the development phase, we try to run different tests and different, let's say, user experiences, and develop some testing user accounts. And obviously, we found some bugs, and the developers fixed them. But as we go, let's say, to market, as we go live, we expect a number of tweaks to be made. My background is in sociology, not technology, but one thing that I've learned in sociology, whenever you develop a testing instrument, maybe a questionnaire or an interview guide for a focus group, you really need to do the pre-testing for maybe 10% of the body of research subjects. So to this day, the testing that we've done has been limited to maybe trying to define some typical user experience and to run some tests, but in a, let's say, in a controlled state, in a beta version. We hope that by the end of this month, as we launch the app, let's say widely, to have maybe a few weeks, 2 or 3 weeks, where we keep continuously tweaking. We were talking about maybe initially we built into the app some sort of, let's say, double checking mechanism, because our app is based on, let's say, a behavior and reward system where we award, let's say, sustainable urban mobility behavior, urban and rural mobility behavior, with various incentives. And because of this, we built into the app some checking mechanisms. As the COVID situation went up, and as we want to make sure that people use the app, we were talking about with the developers to maybe scale down this double checking mechanism and maybe just let the users basically define their own experience within the app and see which functions they choose more and which basically they're not of interest, at least for the public currently. But I would go back just for a second to the previous discussion, and I would say that it's possible to find that the younger generation, the newer generation, who is digitally literate, so to speak, or proficient, they are focusing on some functions, whereas the elderly, who are just now taking into account this and coming back to the call centers, we're talking in the first section, they might use different functionalities of the app. So basically, I think it's going to be a game of checking out the target group and see which aspect they use more.
Okay. For each of the panelists, if you have more questions, please give me a signal or raise your hand. And in the meantime, I just want to ask a question that came in from the audience, which I think follows on very much from your point there, Katalin. Do you think there's a need for standardization of layout and usability of mobile apps? If everybody is developing their own one from scratch, or they look at other ones and say, okay, I might take this feature or that feature, but the end result is that every app is going to look and feel a bit different, and that if you're in a particular area and your neighbors have different apps to you, so wherever you go, and then you go to the one city or another city in your country, and the look and feel of every app is different, and the sequence of commands you have to use is different, not helpful. So anyway, that was the question. Any thoughts from any of the speakers or panelists on that?
Maybe we can have a contest. I don't know. It's a very good question, actually. Yes, there are cities, different applications, but there are different needs in mobility and different kind of services in each city, at least here in Greece. So I think that the best case scenario is to have an application that has the flexibility to adjust, has the same interface. I don't know if it's possible, but has the flexibility to adjust services and things offered in relation to the city you are. I don't know.
Do we see, I mean, like back in the days of Drive 2 in the early 90s, when we were doing the ITS and passenger information, one of the big things we talked about was the standardization of icons and pictorials and images and so forth. So that if you saw a picture or a symbol, you knew what you were looking at, and it wasn't going to be different from one place to another. That's just taking that as a simplistic thing. Has that emerged in the world of mobile apps in the transport sector?
No.
Nope.
If you ask me.
Is there space?
But I think it's, yeah, sorry.
No, please, Marianne, go ahead.
No, but I think it's if you do that, it would be like putting a limit to people's entrepreneurship, saying, okay, if you develop this, you can only go within these lines, and I don't think that's possible if I understood Claudio's presentation correctly, that is more the interface between the systems. Is that correct, Claudio?
Yeah.
Yes. That you can standardize, because that is something everybody needs, but to do the front end standardized, I don't think you can do that. That's very difficult.
If I remember correctly, in the good old drive days, we avoided standardization in things like that, but rather harmonization or making info universals and so forth, so that the industry sector itself converged on, look, that shape or that color in this way, it represented a particular thing. And you didn't come up with a different set of things for that was being used generally, or you didn't use a particular symbol in a different way. So it meant that over time, that wherever you went to, these things gradually became accepted both by the developer side and by the user side as that symbol means this thing, and that it becomes more and more intuitive. But it's maybe that's a conversation for another day in another forum.
Well,
Can I just pick up? Yep, John.
Sorry, just from an operator perspective that hasn't entered the app market yet, I would think that where there is competition, for want of a better phrase, for want of a better word, that it will drive developers to innovate, and that innovation, I think, will ultimately benefit both the user and the service operator. I found, I mean, if you, Brendan, with all respect, you and I are not too far from each other in vintage, and Karl Heinz maybe too. And we grew up in an era without mobile phones, and we have now become very tech. So I think users will adapt too. So it's important for me as an operator that we have different competitors or developers who will bring different skills, who will drive the end product further.
I think part of the big effort in the drive days when the ITS world was coming together was that the developers' effort wasn't put into doing the same things over and over and over and over again, such as coming up with screenshots, coming up with images, coming up with symbols and so forth, or indeed even basic testing of how people respond to if I do this and if I do that, so that they don't put in a very large amount of effort into things that, if they were harmonized or standardized and taken off the shelf, then the effort could go into the functionality, into the efficiency, or indeed even in bringing down the development price, so that something might require some hundreds of hours of developer time rather than thousands. Anyway, that's probably a discussion for another forum. I'd like to just bring in two questions before we close the panel and the Q&A that have come from the audience as well. And I think they're related. One is it easy to download existing data from operators and authority to populate the app? And a related question, is it easy to get all operators to participate in the scheme? And I'm sure the immediate answer is no, it's not easy. But let's say if we move a word that's not as simple as easy to, is it something that can reasonably be done and get their cooperation? So the first side is to get the data from the authorities and operators to populate the app. And the second then is the cooperation or participation of maybe all the operators in an area. Because if you have 10 operators in an area, 5 of them work within your scheme, but you're missing the information from the other 5. Have you a scheme?
I can say for Denmark, we only have one national travel planner where all the buses and trains in Denmark are, because we only 5 million people, so that's very easy done. We only have that one, and to get the information from them into our app was very easy, but the other way around was not that easy.
Meaning? Meaning
that to get the bus and the train timetables into the Navigo solution was very easy. It was done very, very smooth. But to get our ride sharing into there, to the national travel planner, is very difficult. It's not that easy.
Catalin in Romania.
Unfortunately, in Romania, things are pretty difficult because basically the operators are using their own, let's say, app design. It was easy, for example, to integrate into the app the timetable of the buses, but to have a real-time position and maybe some feedback to integrate it in the app, it would have been really difficult. And there's a reluctance, let's say, from the technicians, basically technicians, not necessarily managers, in the public transport operators, to basically open up their system to outside apps that they see it as a vulnerability to a system that they are responsible for. So it's pretty difficult.
Christina, what was the experience for you in Trikala?
As I mentioned in my presentation before, we are considered as a smart city, and we have quite a background on mobility projects. So for this project, in the past, we had to cooperate and work with the local company, the bus station, the local taxi drivers for more than one occasion. So we had already established a good relationship with them. So it was not, in our case, it was not so difficult to ask them to give us the data or to ask them to contribute and support this pilot. But thanks to the work that has been done the last 10 years, when we started implementing mobility solutions 10 years ago, that was not the case. We had to put some effort to convince them, to trust them, to see that there is a future in this kind of projects and the benefit for them as well. But this work has been done years ago.
Exactly. So in both the Trikala case and in Denmark case, the background or the structural work had already been done and you could tap into something. Although, as we're hearing from Denmark, it's not a two-way street. There's the asymmetry and so forth. Yeah. Okay, look, I think it's clear we could keep talking for a long period of time, but we've already gone 15 minutes over. As I said earlier, one of the key learnings from this is clearly we need to have more discussions, and that could either be bilateral between sites, or if a number of you feel that, you know, it would be good to have another discussion about this, and maybe we pick 3 or 4 specific topics, then within SMARTA, we're very happy to organize that, and we just hear back from you who wants to do it, and we'll facilitate it to the extent possible. At this stage, I'd like to thank the speakers, I'd like to thank the panelists, and indeed the audience who are still with us as well. And I'd just like to pass back to Andrea to close out the meeting. Before I do that, a special thank you to Lucia and the team at EIP for arranging the GoToWebinar platform. The event has been recorded so you can view it, and the presentations will be made available. Andrea, you might just close out and also remind us of the next 2 webinars in this series. Thank you very much and goodbye.
Yeah, sure. So I follow you. First of all, thanks everyone for joining, especially for this excellent presentation. Thanks, Brendan, for moderating everything, for guiding us into this discussion. I would like now just to invite you to join us in the next webinars that we are trying to organize. The one will be on 28th of October. It will talk about shared mobility system as community builders. So I think it was another interesting topic to discuss. And the third one will be held on the 5th of November. And that one will talk about the integration of shared mobility services and solution with the conventional or the standard public transport. So we really look forward to join you at these webinars. And thanks again to the EIP team for the organization, to Lucia. Thanks, Brendan, for the moderation. And that's all from my side. Bye, everyone. Bye, everyone. Bye-bye.
Bye.
Bye.